Alright, so I promised you guys I was going to show you how to do an HDRI light setup. So I'm going to make this tutorial pretty quickly. So first of all, what is HDRI? So what does it stand for? And sometimes it's referred to as IBL. It's the exact same thing. So IBL stands for image-based lighting. HDRI stands for high dynamic rainbow images. So it uses Skittle colors to determine the light source. Actually, no, it doesn't. HDRI stands for high dynamic range imaging. Alright, so what does that mean? Very quickly, it means it uses the range of brightness from an image. So certain areas are brighter than other areas, and the brighter areas are Maya uses that texture or that image to project light into your scene. So the darker the areas, the less light. The brighter the range is, the more light it'll throw at you at your scene. So dark is no light, brighter, more light. Anything that's gray, you know, it's sort of like a value. It's like 0 is black, white is 1, and like gray is like 50%, right? Anything above that, you know, start going into 30%, 40%. So it's pretty easy, pretty simple to understand. So now that you look at this image here, now you're gonna understand, oh, I know what this is. HDRI, high dynamic range imaging. So like I said, this brighter area is gonna project light into my scene. This gray area here, not so much light, but still some. And then again, this light source up here, it's a little bit more dim. Well, actually, it's not a light source, it's a texture. It's a picture of a light. All right, so that's gonna project a little bit less light than this, because you can tell this is a lot brighter, right? And then the end result can be pretty professional looking. Now you can use this for, like, if you're doing animation, you want to render out something that looks appealing for your demo reel. You're modeling and you want to render out your final character that you've modeled. You can go ahead and use this light setup, but it doesn't really work well if it's indoors. You know, if you already have like a house and you have your characters inside of your house, because, you know, this whole image, this whole sphere is going to be outside of your house. It's not really going to project too much light inside. So it's only good for outdoors. Let's leave it at that. Now, you can use JPEGs, textures that you can color yourself. So you can just make it completely black, and then certain areas just like draw a bright white square, and it's going to use that to project your light into your scene. But I don't recommend it, because the HDRI images, they're actually HDRI's format. Alright, so they're not JPEGs, they're actually HDRI. Or HDR, I should say. So go ahead, and if you want to download the same one I got, this one I downloaded from this website. Now I'm going to put the link in the description. If you want to use the exact same one I'm using, you're going to go to downloads, and down here it says multi-area light. You're going to click on that, and then this is the exact same image I'm using. Just go ahead and click multi-area lights HDRI. And then once you download it, you're going to go ahead and pop in your own character or whatever model you have. So I downloaded this one from maryproject.com. You guys can check that out if you want, or use your own model. It doesn't really matter. So in order to I already created a perspective lockdown camera, or a bookmark. So you just click on this icon here, and then when you right click, it'll take you to just go ahead and select that one, and it's going to store that viewport. So this is a viewport I'm going to be rendering from. And then I have my little render resolution gate that I like to set up. I'm going to go to my camera. You don't have to follow me. If you want to, you can go to display under perspective shape. And I like to make this completely gate mask opacity, set it to 1, and make it black. That way I only focus on what it's going to render. If you want to play around with the overscan, you can do that. I'm holding control, clicking and dragging so you can see a little bit more. And so now everything inside of the black is what's going to render out. Alright, so now you have your object or your character set up. How do we do image-based lighting? So let's go ahead and render this. And awesome, look at that. It looks like a cartoon. You see little eyes animated. Now, for those of you who follow me on Facebook, I did a shader on eyeballs. I'm not going to be doing the tutorial on this. This is only on IBL setup, HDR, whatever you want to call it. There's actually like different names. People like to call it whatever fancy name they want to call it. Some people just call it, oh, you're doing HDR. Or some people will say HDR imaging. Or, you know, whatever you want to call it. You're doing IBL. It's all the same thing. So call it whatever fancy name you want to call it. I call it both sometimes. I say, select your IBL, you know, so it doesn't matter. Now, we have to be using Mentor for this to work. Alright, so go to Mentor under your render settings. If you do not have Mentor here, very quickly go to Window, Settings, Preferences, at the bottom, Plugin Manager, and scroll down here all the way to the bottom. You should see Maya to Mr. Mean. Okay, it's not Mr. It's Mentor. Maya to Mentor. And make sure you have both of these checked on. And then hit refresh and close. You might have to reboot Maya. I'm not sure. I've always had it there, so go ahead and reboot if it's not there. And then now you should see it here. Mentor. And then I'm going to go ahead and I turned off this at the very bottom. Under the common tab, you'll see render options. Usually Maya has this enable default light. I like to just turn that off so I have full control over the lights. And I'm going to set this to a very low image resolution, so 640 by 480, just so that I'm not rendering like this high HD quality image. So something very small. After I'm happy with the results, I can go ahead and blow this thing up to HD. And very easily, watch how quickly we're going to do this light setup, alright? We're starting fresh. Those of you who are intermediate or advanced, you already know all this junk. Those of you who are beginners, guys are awesome. Here's how it works. I know it's kind of boring, and it's all fundamentals. Image-based lighting. Ooh, IBL. Create. Done. Now, we're not done with the whole lighting, just your IBL is already created. Now, if you ever close all of this stuff, you're like, oh, I'm lost. You see this little tab that it created? Now it's black. Here it's grayed out, but here it's black. If you click on that, it's going to open all your attributes. So if you're ever lost, just don't worry. Breathe. Click that little button. It's going to open up in your attributes. All right? So let's go ahead and move this to the side. See, she's already happy. She's like, you go here to your image name, that little folder. Go ahead and find that HDR that you downloaded. See, notice the extension is HDR. It's not a JPEG. Now, go ahead and plug in your JPEG, experiment with it, but usually HDR gives you a better result. So I'll go ahead and click open. And there it is. It popped it in there. Let's check out what happened. It created this huge sphere. Now, you could leave it this huge. I don't think it matters. I like to just shrink it. Where is my scale? There it is. So scale is like $1 billion. I don't know. I'm going to 500. Press F to frame on it. That's a little bit more reasonable. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate this sucker. So remember, where there's white is where it's projecting light. So actually, however you rotate this, it does affect the lighting. So if you want the light coming from the right of the character, most of the whiteness is coming from these two panels. So you put them on the right. You want them on the left, put them on the left. You know, it's not rocket science here. You want them on top. You know, rotate your whole world upside down. There you go. So I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and test this out. So I'll go back to my camera view. And let's render. Let's see the magic happen. Come on, magic. Oh, what in the what? So let's find out what's happening here. It looks like there's still no lighting. Why isn't it emitting lighting? That's because we haven't told it to emit light. I know Maya has these little funky ways of trying to trick you. It's like, yeah, you thought you created an IBL because you hit the word create, so you thought you created it, but I'm not going to emit any light. I'm just going to mess with you. You have to tell it to emit light. You go back to that little button I told you. Don't get lost. Just click on it. See this? Light emission. Emit light. Oh, now it should. Oh, well. Now it should work. So let's go ahead and render this again, because Maya's trying to screw with us. So let's see what we get here. Oh, I'm liking that. Oh, what is that? Peekaboo. So we got some light. I'm happy. You're happy. But it still doesn't look like that. Right? You're thinking, but it's not fair. He's not going to show us how he did that. He's just going to give us this little dumb little tip. No, I'm not. So you select your sphere. You can also select your sphere here, your IBL. See, I call this sphere the IBL. Go to your channel box, and to increase the lighting, there is no like actual intensity tab here. Wherever you find it, you know, good luck. There's different ways of doing it. This is the way I found it to be useful. You see here where it says, now this is like your typical stuff, but down here under shapes, mental ray IBL shape, you're gonna see the first one's color gain RGB, red, green, and blue. So if you increase these together, all three of them, into something beyond one, you can actually go beyond it. So I'm gonna say double the lighting, double the fun. So we're gonna right click on this, go back to my viewport. Now that I already increased the lighting, I'm gonna go ahead and do another test render here. And let's just sit here, swirl our thumbs, stare at the wall while it renders. What do you do when it renders? I like to know what you do when it renders. So go ahead and post a comment on what do you do when you're rendering. That's what I want to know. So check that out. Oh, I had the other one saved out of here when I was practicing last time. I didn't want to show you that. Okay, let's just start from here. I'm going to save this. Pretend you never saw any of this. You didn't see this. You didn't see any of that. Okay, this is what we have, right? First thing you notice is that what? Okay, it is brighter. We got that down. You are seeing the texture in the background. That's why you see this line here and it looks kind of darker over here. So I'm going to show you how to get rid of that later. First thing that's very noticeable is you have all these little grains on our face, right? All these little dots. So how do we get rid of that? You go to your IBL. You can select the sphere, go to attribute editors. You're going to have these tabs here, so you can find it here. And make sure you're under mental ray, IBL, image-based lighting shape. Again, you're back to your standard attributes here. So this is where we turn on the emit light. This is where we plug our stuff. This is where we want to be messing around with stuff. So here you notice it says quality. This is set to 0.19. Now you don't want to go too high. Here's the thing. The higher the quality that you crank this up, the more it's going to take to render, but the less grainier it's going to look. Alright, so I recommend, you know, see past the graininess, leave it there, leave the quality set to low, focus on the lighting first so that it renders quick, right? You just want to see the lighting, boom, boom, boom. Once you have the lighting done, you go, alright, I like this light setup. Now let's get rid of the graininess, turn up the quality, and then you should be done because you got your lighting down and you got your quality set to how you like it. All right, so that's the tip number one. Most beginners will be like, oh, I'll crank this up to 2, and then you're gonna notice I forgot how long that took to render. What, I don't know, 20 seconds, something like that. Notice now that this might take like, I mean, I have an 8 core, so it could go fairly fast. I don't know, but two is ridiculously high. You might want to leave it at 1, but check this out. It's not even. I don't even know what I'm looking at. The cheek, and it's doing like square by square. So this is actually way too high. So to cancel a render, just smack. You have to smack it. Smack escape like that. You can't just push it. You have to smack it, because Maya's not. I don't know. Just smack the crap out of Maya. So I want to set this something below 0.5. Actually, 0.5 is looking a lot better. 0.6, 0.8 is already high quality. So you know what? Like I said, I'm going to leave it at 0.1 just so they can watch this. Just render really fast. Watch. We're not just going to see the cheek. Now we see the cheek, the mouth, the nose, the eyes. So you see how it's going much faster? So quality, leave it to the end. Cancel that. Smack escape. I'm going to close this. Now, I didn't talk about light setup. I don't think I did. You need your key light, fill light, backlight. I'm going to leave that for another tutorial. Just know that you need 3 types of lights. Key light is your main source of light. It's like when you look at an image really quick, you say, and someone asks you, which way is the light coming from? You should be able to quickly tell and say, it's coming from the right side because it's the brightest. So that's your key light. Your fill light, it's so that you don't have really black, pitch black shadows on your character. You never want to have pitch black anything on your character. So when you look at this and I tell you, is there anything here that's pitch black in shadows? You should be able to say no. Look under her neck where it's the darkest. Is there anything that's pitch black where you cannot see any detail? The darkest is down here. This stupid thing that identifies. How am I going to tag? She's not a real person. She's CG. Jeez. Facebook. But it liked my render. It identified it as a human being. It thinks it's a real person. But you see at the bottom of the neck, it's not pitch black. That's because the fill light, it's a little bit less intense than the key light on the right side. So that's what the fill light does. It's opposite of the key light, and it's a little bit less in intensity. And then the backlight is called, in CG we call it the rim light, but in a like a studio set environment they call it the backlight. And what this does in CG is it pops out your character in front so that you can really pay attention to the character's acting performance. So if you have a very complex background, it's like it's very complex and it draws your attention to it, you want to sort of pop your character in front of that so that you pay more attention to the character and not the environment. So that's why you have this little rim light here. You see that little light around the ear? It's actually a light behind her pointing towards her, and it's kind of bright. Sometimes this can be pretty, maybe brighter than the key light, but you do it so that you get a rim light. You don't try to illuminate the whole thing. So that's it. That's a pretty quick introduction to the 3 lights: key light, fill light, backlight. So let's go back to Maya. So this sphere, the IBO, actually creates my key light and a little bit of my fill light. So if you check this out, where's the one I saved? Right now it's kind of flat, right? You can't really tell that the right side is brighter than the left side. I mean, very subtle. But what you want to do now is go ahead and play around with the rotation of this so that you have most of the source light coming in from the right side of the character. And then that will dictate that the key light is really coming from the right side, because most of the light is on the right side. And then the fill light will be it'll be much softer. You see that that other it was like a gray area on the IBL texture. It wasn't like as bright as the texture. Here, let me go ahead and show you. Well, even here on the render, you can see now that the right side of her face, or our screen right, side of the screen it's a lot brighter on our face, right, than the left side. So that's what you want to do. You want to have one side a little bit brighter so that you can quickly tell, all right, the light's coming in from the right side. That's what you want to do. And then on the left side here, you want to make sure that your shadows are not completely pitch black. So here you can still see some detail. You can see her neck. It's not like a really black there. So that's what fill light does. And then you want to pop the character out from the background. You add that fill light. So I'm happy with this. Again, you can select that, go to your channel box and increase your light from 2 to maybe 2.1, 2.2, whatever you want to mess around with. But let's go ahead and go to create lights. I like to use area light. You can experiment with your lights. Am I even showing the lights? Scale this out. Okay, there it is. Now there's a little line sticking out from this light that tells you which way it emits. So you can see it's pointing behind her. Let's go ahead and point it towards her. And I want this light to come behind her at an angle so I can get a rim light on her edge. And that's usually what the rim light does. It's just on the edge of the character and it's slightly above it. You want to cast it on her head a little bit. Now the bigger you make this light, the brighter the light will get. There's some lights that doesn't matter how much you scale the lights, but this area light, it does matter. So if I make it smaller, it's going to emit a little bit of light. If I make it larger, it'll emit a whole lot of light. So, and it's emitting exactly from the outer perimeter of this square here. So I want to go ahead and go to the attributes of that light. The defaults are fine except the intensity. I'm going to just try 0.4. Sometimes you can leave it at 1 and it looks okay, but I'm going to leave the intensity to 0.4. And then make sure you have ray trace shadows attributes. That one has to be checked on. This is located under shadows, ray trace shadow attributes, and I'm going to increase the quality because sometimes where the brightness hits, like here, you're going to see it slightly pixelated because the you're not getting enough shadow rays. Which I'm not going to get into the detail, but this is kind of like the quality of the light. So I'm going to go ahead and set that to 20 and 4. And then we're going to go ahead and go back and do a test render. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this. Let's see if it doesn't take too long. Alright, I'll just pause it. Alright, so there we go. It took a total of 34 seconds to render this. And now you can see we have a really nice rim light right here, or backlight. Now you can go ahead and play around the position of that, the intensity. I went ahead and actually brightened this up to 0.8 because I noticed that I think I had it at 0.4. It wasn't showing that much, so I went ahead and paused it and increased that. And I rotated the light a little bit more to point in towards her. And then again, the last thing I like to do is go ahead and turn on Final Gather, because Final Gather will go ahead and give you a better simulation of realistic lighting. So the way that light bounces in real life is going to try and calculate that into your render. So in order to do that, go to your render settings, indirect lighting. You'll see here Final Gather. Just go ahead and check that on. And then this might bump up your render time, but again, the quality of the light is going to look a whole lot better than before. And then again, don't forget, the last thing you want to do is go back into that emit light quality and change it from like 0.1 to say, you know, 0.4 or 0.5. Again, you don't want to go too high, don't go above like 0.8, but again, it always depends on the quality and how large you're going to render this image. So I'll do 0.5 will be pretty much okay for me. So let's see, 38 seconds to render that. Again, a little bit better. If you like, you can go ahead and brighten up the intensity just a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and pause it and increase the intensity of this to, I'm going to save this so you can see the before and after. And I'm going to increase the intensity of the quality. I'm sorry, the quality first. So let's do I'll do 0.6, and then I'll go to the IBL and do 2.2 and try this out. So I'm gonna go ahead, pause this, and we'll see the final result. Alright, so there it goes. So now, because I upped the quality of the IBL to, like, what was it, 0.6, and I upped the render time by adding final gather in the settings. So here, now the render time is 1 minute and 22 seconds as opposed to 38 seconds. But now you can tell that there aren't that many dots on here, or you pretty much can't see them. And so that is how you use IBL to render out pretty nice images. Or if you're going to be using this for, say for example, an animation, and you don't want the background. Now the sphere is being rendered out here, so if you look at your alpha channel, oh, it's not being rendered. I must in case it is rendering, if you click this alpha channel and everything is white, it means that it is rendering and you're not going to be able to see behind it. In case it is, you go to your attributes, and I believe, where is that? I guess it doesn't render it, but usually I've had it where it does render it. You just go ahead and go to render stats, still under your IBL shape, and you just make sure that primary visibility is checked off. That way that whole sphere doesn't render off. But I guess here it's not rendering because you don't see white here, so you're just seeing your character. So that's pretty much it. And this is the exact same setup I use even on my website, some of my own stuff here. So another thing that's new as of yesterday, if you purchase any of these downloadable videos, now we offer streaming and download. So if you want to go ahead and download the video, you can download it and keep it. Or if you're worried that your internet connection won't be able to download all the 5 hours worth of video lessons here, we now offer the ability to stream the video, so you can just purchase it and watch it without downloading anything. So that's for all these 3 videos now. But you can tell, even for some of this stuff that I created as an image, I use the IBL system that I just showed you now. So you'll be able to see this, how I have my key light on the right, I have the fill light so it's not pitch black, and I have the backlight. So every time now that you see a rendered image, always try to look for those 3 things. You'll see the key light, you'll see that this left side is not completely pitch black, it's sort of a lower intensity than the key light, and then you're going to see a rim light to pop out the character from the background. And I pretty much did this to all of them. So you can see here, even this character, it has the same IBL setup. So again, key light on the right. Again, this shadow is not completely black. I could have brightened it up a little bit, and then you have the rim light, but it still looks okay. And then even this last one, same setup, but now I rotated it a little bit different. So the key light is facing in front of him. Fill light, it's on the side of him, and then the key light, it's on the back of him. So that's what new. This is what's new with the website. Again, if you want to go ahead and download your own rigs, you can go ahead and check out the rig section, and you'll get linked to the website where you can get a hold of those. And that's pretty much it. I'll post the link to the HDRI images. So I hope you enjoy the tutorial, and go ahead and post your renders on my Facebook, because I check my Facebook more often. But go ahead and post an image, and I like to see what kind of work you rendered out. So, and also let me know what you do on your render time. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.